everyone, Kate here to talk about the January Instagram books that I read or DNF'd, and then the February Instagram books that I have picked out. So people again suggested some amazing titles. I'm looking forward to telling you the 3 that ended up getting selected. But first, I will tell you about the books for January that I read or DNF'd. So the first one that unfortunately was a DNF, and this is what I was a little bit nervous about doing these videos, because people never like hearing you say that you didn't like a book that they like. So hopefully it, doesn't really step on anybody's toes too much. The first one was Anastasia Krupnik by Lois Lowry. I will say, this is one that I wanted to love. There was a lot of charm in it with the humor and the little world that Anastasia lived in. It did have a way of reminding me of Beverly Cleary's books, which is very high praise coming from me. I think though, however, instead of being, I love the Henry Huggins books. And it felt like those, but kind of with a little layer of cynicism to them. So kind of there's some interpersonal conflict happening with the mom and dad, but they're also just sitting around the dinner table with their daughter, and kind of the snarky tones that the kids have when they're speaking to the grown-ups. It just was very jarring to me. And obviously I know these situations happen in real life, but when I'm reading a children's book, it's not something that I go there to experience. So there was a lot that I could see why people like this series, but unfortunately it just was not a home run with me. So I stepped away from that. And then the next one that I read was The Homemaker by Dorothy Canfield Fisher. I had expressed my hesitations, saying that I hoped this wasn't about how domesticity is oppression. It was not about how domesticity is oppression. I did finish this book. However, it really was society is oppressive. The only reason that people have a family where one person would stay home with a kid and one person would go to work is because we're forced into these situations, and it just felt very, very privileged. Just when you think about the span of humanity over time and what our ancestors have done just for us to survive, and varying depending on who your ancestors are, life has really not been easy for 90% of humanity, maybe even more than that. And so this book, honestly, it just felt kind of out of touch, talking about the drudgery of being at home or the drudgery of being at a job. It would be an unbelievable luxury to have access to so much food and heating and running water a few hundred years ago. So it just felt very modern, and the tone was completely lost on me. Now, I will say I did keep reading because she is an amazing writer. The writing itself was very compelling, and it was very character driven. You're really spending much time with these characters. So it was more the sensibilities of the characters and then obviously the author that was off-putting to me. But I did keep reading because her writing was amazingly compelling. One I definitely won't be returning to though. And then unfortunately another DNF, and that was The Golden Princess and the Moon. I am really in the mood for a fairy tale retelling. And unfortunately I DNF'd a Cinderella retelling I was really hopeful about, and DNF'd The Golden Princess and the Moon. The Golden Princess and the Moon is for readers that really love George McDonald. The language was beautiful. It was beautiful. So I'm thinking about The Light Princess by George McDonald, and then what is it? The Little Lame Prince by Dinah Mullet Craik. Those to me, I love those fairy tales, and I love how moving they are. I love how beautifully written they are and how they're really about kind of the refining of character. But it's the length of them that works for me. This felt kind of meandering. Like I said, the writing was beautiful, but the way in which you got to know the characters, it's something about the fairy tale setting made the characters feel very aloof. And I can't explain to you what it is. It's just something that my personal taste, it didn't suit me as well. So I was really hopeful about that because it was just, I mean, it was stunningly beautiful writing, but I am such a character reader that if I can't get to know the characters. So I think I got maybe 25% of the way through, and then I realized I kept hoping, things might change, and then it's just, this is the style of story that it is. So it really works for some readers. I think if you like full-length George MacDonald novels, like, this is your kind of book. You should read this book. You would love this book. Okay, and then lastly, Winter Cottage by Carol Ryrie Brink. This was kind of my bonus one that I added because I so wanted to read it. And I'm so excited because Echo Point Books and Media, they are republishing some of Carol Ryrie Brink's books. So previously, last year, this was maybe, you could find it for, I don't know, $45 or something on used book websites. It was really hard to get a hold of. So I'm so excited that they have published this. And then also they very generously sent me a review cottage of The Pink Motel. So I'm so excited to read that. I think I'm going to save it for middle grade March. I'm not entirely sure. We shall see. All to say, this book, it was such an interesting reading experience for me because it was one that I kind of considered DNFing a few times. It was so different, not so different, but it was fairly different from the Family Grandstand series. I was kind of going into, I want every other book by her to be the Family Grandstand series. And so I read this and it is much quieter, much more isolated, not this larger than life feel that the Family Grandstand books have. They're off in this winter cottage. They're trying to survive a winter. This father and his two daughters, and then later on you meet this additional character. So it felt very different. And then I just kept reading. There was this quality about it. And so I think my expectations of this made this, kind of a challenging read at certain points. By the time I finished, though, the next day I woke up and I was remembering it and thinking, that was a really wonderful book. It was a really wonderful book. So I think just my expectations threw off my experience. And so it's one that, the library didn't have it. So I bought a copy and now I'm so over the moon that I own this. It's also pretty short. It is less than 200 pages, 178 pages, and it's just this little gem. So if you love stories of kind of camaraderie, people banding together to survive, and it's also very quaint. I don't know, there's a quaint feel to it. So I am really glad, I'm thankful that Amy from Amy of Hearthridge suggested this. And it's one I'll return to. So very different vibe than I was thinking it was going to be, but now I'm so glad that I did finish it. So those were my January Instagram books. 2 out of the 4 finished. Did really love, one of the ones that I finished, but then I really loved this. So this is, just a real sweet, special book. And then on to the books that I'm going to be reading. So I have 3 picked for February. And basically, I explained this before, but I have people suggest books to me on Instagram. And I'm going to be doing this each month. And I have 3 books that I'm going to pick. And basically, I'm a generous DNFer. I will not finish a book if I'm not loving it. And so I have 2 backups in case one of these doesn't work out. And if I end up DNFing all 3, then I just, that's what happened that month. So the first one is The Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon by Beth Brower. This has come onto my radar through Instagram. And let me tell you, the fans of this series are so loyal and so enthusiastic, and they just make it seem like a truly, truly wonderful series to read. And there are 6 out now. I'm pretty sure a 7th one is coming out maybe later this year, but it's just the enthusiasm of the fans that make it seem so fun. It's set in the Regency era, and it's written like their journals from this character, Emma M. Lyon. And they just sound like a lot of fun. The first 2 are novella length, so I will just be trying volume 1 because they are, I don't just have endless money to spend on a series that I haven't read any of yet. I think I'll slowly buy the series. Although I hear they are very unputdownable once you start. So we are going to see, we'll see what we see. The next one, and I'm hoping maybe this could be a fairy tale retelling for me to love, because like I said, I'm in the mood for a fairy tale retelling, is Entwined by Heather Dixon. This is a retelling of the 12 dancing princesses. And I tried Juliette Marillier's retelling of that and wasn't on board. Wildwood Dancing is the name of that one. So the main keeper, her name is Azalea. And it just is a retelling of that. There's not much that this gives away. So let's read the first sentence. Let's see what it says. An hour before Azalea's first ball began, she paced the ballroom floor, tracing her toes in a waltz. She had the opening dance with the king, who danced like a brick. I do love a good fairy tale retelling, so I'm feeling very hopeful about this one. And then lastly is a middle grade book, and that is The Higher Power of Lucky. This is one that I had not heard about before. Susan Patron is the author. It also is filled with illustrations. Or maybe not filled, but there are illustrations sprinkled in here and there. This seems a bit like a Kate DiCamillo. I know there is like an adventurous Kate DiCamillo. Our main character, Lucky, ends up going on a trek across the desert. So that sounds very interesting, and I am intrigued to know what happens. So yes, those are my 3 February picks. I will be back in March to let you know what I thought of those, if I had any successes. Thank you to anyone who suggested a book title. It's really fun to see what people suggest that I read. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will be back with another video soon. Bye.